Christopher Wallace was born in Brooklyn, New York, to parents from Jamaica, the birthplace of reggae music. He was smart from a young age and often received school awards, possibly due to his mother's skill in cooking. He was overweight by the age of 10. When he was 2, his father left home but did not die. His mother raised him single-handedly, working hard to support the family, which sometimes led to her being less attentive to him. As mentioned in the previous episode, he grew up in a complex social environment, lacking the ability to deal with the outside world. Moreover, having been raised in a single-parent household from early on, he started using drugs at 12, and later, when he was 16, his mother discovered that he was not only using drugs, but also dealing them. Wallace saw everything he did as a business, and legitimate trades or so-called honest jobs either didn't pay much or didn't bring in money as fast as drug dealing. So at 17, this unlucky guy dropped out of school to dive full-time into criminal activities. He bought a gun, planning to make his business bigger and stronger, aiming for new heights of success. But fate always has its own plans. Just as Wallace was ready to make his move, he was arrested by the police for illegal possession of a firearm and sentenced to 5 years of probation. Soon, this restless chubby guy violated his probation terms and was arrested again, and a year later, he was caught in the act of dealing drugs. After serving 9 months in jail, Wallace suddenly felt that his path to becoming a drug lord was far too rocky. Before going to prison, Wallace had gotten his girlfriend pregnant. After his release, Wallace, facing his newborn baby, determined to take on the responsibilities of fatherhood. To provide for his family, he took a hard look at his talents and realized that, aside from drug dealing, he had a gift for rapping. At that time, rap culture had already taken over American society. Nowadays, some people online get smug just for picking up a couple of curse words. But back then, on the streets of Brooklyn, if you couldn't freestyle to diss someone, you'd be too ashamed to even say hi. Wallace was a standout in this scene, and once, an underground rapper from another neighborhood came to challenge him, with the loser having to hand over their drug turf. At first, this rapper mocked Wallace. However, when Wallace grabbed the mic, the rapper quickly realized things weren't going as expected. Why did this guy's rap come with its own bass? With an unstoppable godlike presence, Wallace crushed that Galanda rapper, making him see that those so-called rappers weren't all that. So he decided to give the rap game a shot himself. What if he hit it big? It didn't cost anything to try, after all. With that, he recorded a demo under the name B-Boy Small. Puff Daddy, who was then a producer at Uptown Records, heard the demo and immediately decided to meet Wallace. In the movie Notorious, when the two met, Wallace confirmed that Puff Daddy was indeed as good as his reputation suggested. So, with a mutual liking, they happily signed a record deal. Even though Wallace successfully signed, he didn't shoot to fame right away. Instead, Puff Daddy got fired from the company, leaving Wallace's record contract worthless. Still, Puff Daddy didn't give up. He quickly teamed up with Wallace to create a new record label called Bad Boy Records. Facing this startup, Wallace couldn't help but feel uneasy. As Puff Daddy's first partner, he knew the company's situation inside out. Bad Boy Records not only had a bad reputation, but was also in dire financial straits. Puff Daddy, being a bachelor, could take risks, but Wallace, a married man, couldn't afford to throw caution to the wind. He felt that rather than this, it might be wiser to stick to a steadier path, namely legal drug dealing. Luckily, Puff Daddy brought him into the underground rap scene in time, letting him sharpen his skills in an environment not yet split by coastal rivalries, where people gathered over shared passions and became friends and confidants. It was through Puff Daddy's introduction that these two future rivals first met. At that point, Tupac had already become a rapper and movie star, while Wallace was still a nobody. But Tupac was instantly drawn to Wallace's talent. After all, not everyone has that kind of gift. Plus, their similar backgrounds, like growing up in single-parent families, being steeped in street culture, and having top-notch rap skills, sparked a deep connection between them, as if they were fated to mirror each other. It's said that Wallace's first Rolex watch was a gift from Big Bro Pac, which left Wallace pretty jealous. At the time, Pac wasn't just a rapper and actor. He was also a leader in social activism, often joining black community events and giving speeches, pushing for black folks to fight for their rights and unite as one. There's no denying it. Some people are just born to lead. Wallace, a street hustler, had never seen anything like it and quietly marveled to himself, thinking, "This is what a real man should be." After hitting it big, Tupac had lots of female friends, including world-famous musicians like Madonna and Janet Jackson. But while navigating this garden of women, Tupac ran into trouble. In December 1993, he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman in a hotel. Since the two had indeed hooked up, this guy, who talked smoother than he sang, couldn't talk his way out of this one. Tupac thought this woman was just a hooker, that it was a simple cash-for-sex deal, and that calling it rape was ridiculous. She didn't even have a leg to stand on for a shakedown. But things were far from simple. The woman's lawsuit dragged Tupac into court, and at that moment, Tupac felt totally justified, convinced he hadn't done anything wrong. In September 1994, Wallace Jackson released his debut album, Ready to Die, under Bad Boy Records. Since the stage name Biggie was already taken by another artist, he had to pick a new one, settling on Notorious B.I.G. The album's hot sales launched these two unknowns into stardom. In Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, it ranked 133rd. Its release didn't just break the West Coast rap's long monopoly on the market. It created a legend, a brand new shell of a record label, a rapper who stumbled into the game, a guy sacked from his company for big talk, and a street thug with a rap sheet, all leaning on their elite skills to carve out a space in the rap world. East Coast rap emperor Wallace took the throne, and the East-West Coast rap rivalry officially took shape. In the movie Notorious, Will Ferrell, playing Wallace, returned to the streets he once ran, tossing out cash and gifting watches, living large and carefree. Wallace and Puff Daddy were full of hope for the world. That same October, 2PAC's rap crew Thug Life dropped their first album, Thug Life, Volume 1, laying out 2PAC's life motto: either you take charge of your life, or you die fighting on this road of struggle. Fight to the end, never give in. This unyielding, battling way of life was set in stone. Nowadays, the thug life culture sweeping the internet was born right then. In February 1995, Pac was found guilty of sexual assault in court and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Though Pac insisted it was a setup, he couldn't escape jail time in the end. The day before his sentencing, Pac was doing his usual thing, recording in the studio. But as he stepped out into the lobby, someone shot him down, hitting him with 6 bullets. He was rushed to the hospital, and after emergency treatment, Pac pulled through. For some unknown reason, Pac started suspecting Puff Daddy was behind it. As a former friend, Wallace couldn't convince him it wasn't true and chose to stay quiet. Wallace hoped time would smooth things over, that they could eventually let go of the grudge, sit down for a drink, freestyle a bit, and get things back to how they were. But once things change, there's no going back. That same March, 2PAC's new album Me Against the World hit the shelves and shot up the charts, with the single Dear Mama gaining huge popularity. With simple, heartfelt lyrics, the song told the story of a black woman raising her kid through poverty and hardship with grit and grace. It was 2PAC's first musical shout-out to his mom, thanks to its stellar quality. The track climbed to number 9 on the Billboard charts and earned platinum sales certification, thanks to 2PAC's controversial life. He was a guy who took 6 bullets and lived, a poet with soul in the rap game, a black star who rose from nothing. You've got to realize that back then, with print media still king, Tupac was the center of every hot topic. Everyone was glued to this guy locked up in jail. This walking headline, stuck in prison munching on potatoes and staring at the ceiling, was pondering life. Word on the street was that Wallace and Puff Daddy were behind the shooting. People swore it was legit. Caught holding the bag, Wallace and Puff Daddy were totally baffled. Tupac wasn't just a singer and actor. He was a social activist with a huge following, folks desperate for someone to speak for them, and Tupac was their voice. Freaked out, the two buddies had to go on TV to clear things up. Back then, Puff Daddy didn't have the swagger of today's top-tier producer. He looked defeated in front of the camera, explaining himself. But the truth didn't matter anymore, did it? A bigger storm was coming. In early 1995, Tupac walked out of prison thanks to a hefty bailout from Suge Knight, the boss of Death Row Records. This guy was a total jerk, not too bright, and lived by a crude, blunt code. But despite that, he had killer luck. After starting his company, he signed a bunch of top rappers back-to-back, raking in cash and clout. Now he shelled out big bucks to spring Tupac from jail on the condition that Tupac put out 3 albums under his label. With that, 2PAC's prison days were over. In August 1995, Suge publicly dissed some industry figure at a rap event. "If a producer's always hogging the spotlight in music videos," he said, "come to Death Row. We stick to people first, business second, honesty above all, no scams here, making sure producers are straight up and don't steal the artist's shine." Some guy who loved rapping harmonies got caught in the crossfire. First off, character, Puff Daddy, a legit businessman, kept every penny clean and even helped Wallace kick the drug trade. Then talent. This dude single-handedly mixed Wallace's whole album, plus he could write, sing, and produce, a triple threat. And you shady creep, have the nerve to call out other producers' integrity? Even with Suge's lousy character, he saw the East Coast rap boom as a real threat to his label. As Piers, a producer who loved stealing the spotlight, rubbed Puff Daddy the wrong way, but he couldn't do much about it. Back then, the East and West Coast rap markets looked calm on the surface, but underneath, the rivalry was heating up. In February 1996, Tupac dropped his 4th solo album, All Eyes on Me, the first double CD in rap history. The track California Love, with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, won rave reviews for its slick production and shot to the top of the charts. That album ended up snagging Best Rap Album at the 1997 Soul Train Awards. With his career blowing up, Tupac started plotting his future. He planned to step back from the limelight, take 5 years or more to craft some deep work, and use his clout to help poor black kids steer clear of drugs and get on the right path. He was even scheming to start his own film company and had a record label in the works. Of course, all this hinged on everything going smooth. On June 4, 1996, unlike his earlier subtle jabs at East Coast rappers, 2PAC's new track Hit 'Em Up came out swinging, tearing into Wallace and Puff Daddy hard. In the song, Tupac bragged about sleeping with Wallace's spouse and slammed Puff Daddy's character, hinting he snitched about the shooting. That lit the fuse on the East-West Coast rap beef. Worse yet, with the US record industry booming, no matter where they went, Wallace and Puff Daddy had a solid chance of hearing that track. Whether shopping or driving, someone might be blasting a song cussing you out. On September 7, 1996, Tupac and Suge agreed to hit up the MGM Grand to catch a hyped-up Mike Tyson fight. At first, 2PAC's fiancée, Kidada Jones, wasn't cool with it, but Tupac promised her he wouldn't stir up trouble. With a deal from a week earlier, Kidada had no choice but to help him pack. When she handed him his usual bulletproof vest, Tupac turned it down because of the heat. Suge swore it was his turf, going there was like coming home, and he'd keep Tupac safe. That night, they headed to the MGM Grand to watch Tyson's match. Like any fan, Tupac, thrilled to see his idol, hugged and snapped pics with Tyson backstage. Pumped up, Tupac mimicked his hero's moves, throwing punches in the air. Then, his bodyguard tipped him off. A rival gang member was up ahead. Forgetting his promise to his girl, Tupac went after the guy. Cops showed up soon after, broke it up, and they all cleared out. 2 hours later, riding in Suge's BMW, Tupac pulled up to a red light. A Cadillac sped in, and 2 gunmen with Glocks hopped out, unloading over 10 rounds into the passenger side where Tupac sat, then peeled off. Suge and the crew called for help and rushed Tupac to the hospital. On September 13, 1996, the hospital declared Tupac dead after efforts to save him failed. The man who'd sparked a rap storm on the West Coast was gone. With Tupac and Big's East-West Coast feud already the talk of the town, folks couldn't help but wonder, if someone dissed you in a rap, trashed your family, and you heard it everywhere you went, would you shoot them? In this land of freedom, pulling a gun after an insult is a go-to for lots of people. For Texas guys, it's just one question. Is one clip enough? If not, better bring 2. After 2PAC's death, the blame shot straight to his peers, Wallace and Puff Daddy. Plenty of folks figured that with Tupac roasting them in June and dying in September, It proved the East Coast rap scene was dirty. Wallace even swore if he'd done it, he'd step outside and get hit by a car. In February 1997, after recovering, Wallace headed to California to hype his new album Life After Death. Though his rap skills were undeniable, the album's title wasn't exactly a winner. On March 8th, he showed up as a presenter at the 11th Soul Train Music Awards in LA. After the ceremony, he hit a party. At 12:30 a.m. on March 9th, the party shut down early over fire safety issues, and Wallace drove off with Puff Daddy. 15 minutes later, at a red light, Wallace's car got ambushed by an unknown shooter. Puff Daddy and the crew rushed him to the hospital, but at 1:15 a.m., Wallace was pronounced dead despite efforts to save him. He was 24. 16 days after Wallace's death, his new album Life After Death became reality. Released as planned, it debuted with over 700,000 copies sold in its first week, topping the Billboard album chart and holding the crown for 4 weeks straight. Even more jaw-dropping, it smashed 10 million sales in under 2 years, earning diamond certification. With that, the two rap titans who'd shaken up the East and West Coasts, Wallace and Tupac, were both gone. What's the end of the story? Though Tupac's been dead for years, the killer's still a mystery. Online theories swirl. Some point to Suge Knight. Is that the truth? In Notorious, Wallace kept warning Tupac to steer clear of certain people. Who was he talking about? This video ends here. In the next episode, we'll continue with the final part of Tupac's life story. If you enjoyed the video, please click subscribe. See you next time.